All right. So, hello, everyone watching now and watching later. I am Lev Rosen. I'm the mentorship chair for Mystery Writers America New York. And I am joined both by our special guest, Ayla Zuraw-Friedland, and by Kate Hall, who runs the crime crafts for MWA-NY. And this isn't just a crime craft and it's not just mentorship. It's sort of a fun new thing we're trying where we are going to not only, oh, I just realized my light's not on. Huh. Where we're not only going to have this wonderful speaker come and talk to you about how to write an agent letter, but we are also offering you the opportunity if after this presentation you think to yourself, I really wish I had someone to workshop my agent letter with. I will pair you up with someone else who has attended this or is watching later online. To do that, please email me at mentors@mwany.org, mentors at mwany.org by September 19th, even if you don't have your letter written, just to get on that list. And I will be pairing people up who have also been here. You have to be a member. This is a membership privilege. And hopefully that way you will have someone else to workshop your agent query letter with who has also been taught this invaluable lesson. So now let me introduce Ayla. Ayla Zuraw-Friedland is an agent at the Francis Gold Literary Agency. Prior to that, she worked at the David Black Agency, where my own agent is. So I asked my agent what I should say about Ayla to introduce her, and she said not only does Ayla have the sharpest mind and best taste out there, but also a deep well of kindness and compassion for all who are blessed to be part of her tribe.
Joy.
Ayla, I'm gonna make you cry right off the bat. Ayla
Fantastic.
represents a range of authors from Jamie Hood to Shelley J. Shore. She's a fantastic agent, and I'm so pleased to welcome her to speak with us all today and teach us about agent query letters. So take it away, Ayla.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lev and Joy, wherever you are right now. Boston, probably, for that lovely intro. Yes, so this is a little how-to about the before, during, and after of querying. I was asked to put this together, and in thinking about what I look for in a query letter and what the most successful query letters I've seen have looked like, I kind of realize it's less of an art and more of a science. So that's the title here. So I will just get started. Oh, so Love already introduced me a little bit, but in terms of this specific element of querying, um, I feel like I have quite a bit of experience in looking at queries. I worked in the industry for about 10 years, both as an editor at Beacon Press in Boston, and as an agent for fiction and nonfiction. Um, I was trying to do the math of how many queries I've looked at. Unfortunately, my email only goes back about 4 years. And just in that email, I've looked at approximately 5,350-ish queries and probably many, many more than that. So, all this to say, I know what I like in a query letter and I know what I find helpful, like everything else in the industry and books in general. Preferences are quite subjective. Different agents have different things that they look for, depending on the genre, depending on, if they're an early career agent versus a later career agent. Um, so, you know, that being the overall caveat, um, I can tell you what works for me, and I think what will position you for success in this small part of the process by making you appealing to the widest range of possible agents. Because you will query many agents. Very few people are assigned by the first agent that they query. So that's where I'm coming from. Um, so before you start writing your query letter, and to clarify, a query letter is what is in the body of the email that you send when you first pitch your book to an agent. Every agent, as I said, has different preferences for how they would like to be queried. I'll get to that in a second, but it is basically the cover letter of your manuscript, your project, whatever it is. Um, the first, is your book ready? That seems like kind of an obvious question, but you would be shocked by how many times I have been queried with a first draft of a novel. I know that everyone is so talented and so smart, but a first draft is just that. It's a first draft. So ask yourself, how many drafts have you put this through? How long have you been working on it? Have you taken time between different drafts? And in the meantime, have other people read it? Have you gotten feedback on it from other people? Have you even maybe published parts of it at literary magazines? What kind of feedback have you gotten? Have you instituted some of it? Have you thought about it? Have you wrestled with the book? And in general, like, have you done more than just put pen to paper or, cursor to a Word document? And, on the more professional level, have you proofread it? Have you fixed any weird formatting? Have you made it generally easy to read for a person who, again, has likely read thousands and thousands of pages on their computer and are just looking for the quickest way to understand what it is that they're looking at, who you are, where it fits in the market, and, end list. So those are some questions to ask yourself before you get into what I know are called the query trenches. The next question, is the agent or are the agents that you're querying ready and willing? Um, by this, I mean, have you been building a list of agents that feel like the right fit for your book? There are a few places that you can do that. You can find different agents on Poets and Writers. I know that Publishers Marketplace has kind of a matcher. I think you might need to be a member to use that, though I'm not certain. Have you looked in the acknowledgement sections of books that you have read and feel like your book is akin to? Likely the agent that represented that book will be thanked in the acknowledgements. And if they aren't, that is another story and another piece of information to consider. So, of your list of agents that you've compiled, have you confirmed that that agent is open to queries? You can generally find this out via their page on their agency's website or, via query manager, query tracker. Definitely check the main sources of that information instead of places that just aggregate all of it, like Duotrope, any of those online sources. Go in and make sure that they are actually open to queries. I can't speak for everyone. I know that when I am closed to queries, I automatically delete all of the ones I receive. Because if I'm closed to queries, it means that I'm not looking to take on any clients right now. I am overwhelmed with the clients I do have. Um, Relatedly, if that agent is open to queries, have you confirmed that the agent represents the genre you are writing in? I encourage everyone to shoot their shot with their well-formed, well-edited manuscript, but you really have to make sure that you are shooting at the right target. Um, Whenever I see a query letter that starts with, I know you don't blank, or I know you are closed to queries, but I know you don't represent YA, but I think that my book would blah, blah, blah. That's kind of an immediate no for me because I know what I'm looking for typically, or like what spaces are in my arsenal right now, what I have the time and the energy to be taking on. So it kind of feels like the violation of one kind of boundary. And we're very public about the things that we're looking for. Writers always want to know, and because we want to read things that we want to read, we're pretty specific about what we say we're looking for. And finally, have you confirmed how or in what format the agent receives queries? I.e., I know for myself, I ask for, in fiction, a query letter and the first 15 pages of the manuscript in the body of the email. I do not want attachments. There are too many little freaks out there trying to give my computer cancer. Um, or for nonfiction, I request a proposal as an attachment with the query letter in the body of the email. Agents will put what their preferences are, usually on their website, or if they're using Query Manager, that is likely part of the submission process. So all this to say, do your due diligence. And that is already so much more than a lot of authors do. And the final question I encourage everyone to ask is, are you ready to query? Querying and writing is a really emotional process for a lot of people. Um, and it's kind of like how everyone thinks their child is the most perfect child. Everyone thinks that their book is the most important, most well-written, most emotionally fraught thing. But as I said, for someone like an agent who is reading or has read close to 6,000 queries, we're not feeling quite the same way, right? We're coming from a different place. We didn't write the book. We haven't spent, sometimes years looking at it. So I think what often happens is people will query before they are emotionally or professionally ready for direct feedback, or absolutely no feedback. So I think that you really have to think like, have I gone as far as I can by myself or with my writing community? And now I'm ready to go to the next step. Um, and I think you also really have to think about, how do you handle rejection? There's going to be a lot of it. Both when you're querying, a lot of agents will likely say no, or perhaps nothing at all because of how many we get. Sometimes it'll say on the agent's website, if you don't hear from me in 6 weeks or 6 months, assume it's a no. There's a lot of silence in the querying process, so you kind of have to be able to manage the unknown a little bit. Um, ask yourself, why exactly do you want to publish a book? Is it because you would like affirmation? Is it because you think that the story needs to be told? It can be for a lot of reasons, but if you are looking to write a book and publish it, I think to be really blunt, I think it makes sense to make sure that you have a really full life outside of it. Because essentially, writing a book is extra credit. No one has asked you to do it. You are doing it, and writing is a fucking miracle in that sense. It's a miracle any book gets written and published. So, be ready to speak assertively about your art, be ready to receive feedback about it, and be ready to get nothing at all out of it. Um, we're coming at it from very different places, and I think that a lot of people believe that publishing will make them feel better about themselves. And I think, in fact, it is often the opposite. The author Charlotte Shane recently wrote a really wonderful Substack piece, interviewing a lot of like critically acclaimed writers about their experience publishing and the months after. And pretty much unilaterally, they all really struggled emotionally after their first publication. I think it's such a monumental burst of effort, and you've sat with this book for so long that it almost feels like the come down after a big party, or like if you've ever done a theater show, like it's 1,000 miles an hour to zero. So really make sure you're kind of in a good emotional place before you do it, because there is a lot of the process that's going to be really hard. So, is your soul searched? Is your manuscript perfectly formatted to the best of your ability? Have you looked at it for so long that if you have to do another pass at it, you're going to throw up right now? If you've answered all of these questions that I bring up for yourself, go for it. So now that we are at the point of putting together a query letter, now that you've inspected your soul, your work, and the shots that you're going to be taking, the folks that you want to be in touch with, uh, there's a fundamental question. What is a query letter for? I described it before. It is basically the cover letter of your book. What a query letter should do is it should read more like a cover letter when you're applying for a job than a dating profile or a blog post. What do I mean by that? A good query letter contains genre, word count, comparative titles or shows. I'll get into this in a minute, but I think at this stage, like, don't worry about how a book has sold, because you don't have access to that data. I kind of see that as my job because I do have access to that data. Um, but really talk about like which titles or shows you feel akin to, and be really specific about the things about each of those things, each of those pieces of media that you're pulling from. So it's like, you know, the campus setting of a Leaf Batuman's The Idiot meets the strange, uncanny nature of a David Lynch film. Like there are like two kind of things that you're drawing from, and you're giving me the coordinates for what I can expect. Should or could also include a nod toward other books the agent has represented and why your book might be for them. Be specific, but not overly verbose. If you're querying with fiction, the plot of your book in a very straightforward Wikipedia-like manner. Just tell me what happens. You don't need to be coy or marketing about it or be like, and you'll never guess what happens next. Like, I'm looking for information. I'm looking to be like, okay, if I decide to start reading, sort of what is the movement that I'm looking for? Like, what is the point A to B to C that I am trying to get to? Because that also helps me figure out pacing once I start reading. For nonfiction, it should include the topic of your book, why it matters, why you should be the one to write it, and why it differs from other books on the topic. Your bona fides as a writer or a scholar, past publications, graduate programs. If you work in a more practical, like self-help kind of book, like what is your platform? Why do people care what you have to say? The names of any people in the industry you have connections with or a referral from. The longer an agent has been working as an agent, the more that they are going to be working on referrals from their current clients than they are going through their query inbox. And then a normal have a good day and your contact info. Um, That sounds boring though. I've heard this a lot from a lot of people. I just said that I've just said that I read thousands and thousands of query letters. And if the point is to stand out from the thousands and thousands of query letters to get me to take your work seriously, how are you going to stand out if it's just informational? You are an artist, your book is wonderful, all of that. That's what the book is for. The query letter is not where you flex your personality, your joie de vivre. It really does just show what it is that you're doing, who you are, what the book is. Thank you and good night. And then you wow me with the book because no matter how fun a query letter is, if the book isn't working, the book isn't working, and I'm not going to be able to change that from there. So some things that a good query letter does not include any JPEG. Unless you're doing a photography book, don't. Um, any biographical information that you might have found out about the agent via social media, or other things that are not part of their personal profile or their professional profile. I once had someone query me, retract their query, and then query me again, saying that they liked my name so much that they changed the name of the protagonist in their book to my name, who is the love interest, actually. And then that was the reason they thought I should sign it. Um, any iteration of the phrase one of a kind or unlike any book you've ever read. All books borrow from one another. And I think aside from telling me what your book is by using comparative titles, it also tells me how you engage with your community of writers and artists. If you are simply, tunnel visioning in on the way you write and the way you think and don't really look around or understand the history or like what tools you're using, which you're putting away, it really shows me like a sense that you're not quite keyed into the literary world. Pontifications or musing on the state of publishing or the power of literature. Um, working in publishing means that I am also thinking about all of these things. So a paragraph that's like a manifesto about publishing kind of just extends the project and just is distracting. It means I don't want to keep reading. An incomplete manuscript for fiction or proposal for nonfiction. You should only query fiction when the manuscript is complete. I do not sign things on a partial manuscript. It has to be done because I have to submit to editors if I sign a client a complete manuscript. For proposals, the proposals should be complete. It should not, like, An agent is not in the business of doing book doctoring. We do a lot of that with our clients. I'm a very editorially hands-on person, but we need to see that you have gone the distance in doing your best at this. Because the thing is, if you are struggling to finish a manuscript at this stage or even a proposal, because that's just too much writing, I have horrible news about how much writing a book is. So make sure it's done. A lot of people will lie or kind of play up their connections in the industry. It is very easy for us to know when you're doing that because we all sort of know each other. And if someone queries me saying that they're really good friends with X author, chances are I know that author or I know the agent who represents that author, and I can simply ask. And starting a relationship on a lie isn't great. Negging, I'll get to that in a minute. Weird formatting, please don't. And also, do not bulk submit. Um, I have more than once, probably hundreds of times at this point, gotten queries that have, my name, but then CC, 50 other agents in it. Do it one at a time. You can make a template email. Um, I delete those automatically. In short, your query letter should give an agent information, not attitude. Um, what this means is that I'm sure you are going, like every agent relationship with a writer is slightly different. But at this stage, when you are first doing outreach to agents, you are effectively proposing a business venture with them. The business is your book, and the query is your cover letter. Um, please just give us the information about your experience, about what you're doing, about what you're writing, so that we can get to reading your manuscript a little faster and making a judgment call from there. Lev asked me to provide some examples of good query letters. Um, these are actually two books, one fiction and one nonfiction for books that I signed up and have sold and now are published authors. So I will start with fiction. Rules for Ghosting is by my client Shelley J. Shore. It came out from Bantam Dell at Penguin Random House in August of last year. Ooh, cool, it worked. Um, so this is the actual query letter that Shelley sent me. Um, so the green are things that were done well, and I have flagged in the comments why they are done well. So the first, we have 100, the word count and the title. Great. I know how long it is, and I know what it's called. Reference to what I say I'm looking for on my website. This is pretty much exactly what I did on the website when I was talking about my wish list, which means that she did her research. Genre, contemporary queer adult fiction. Great, I represent that, so I'm happy to read it. Comparative works. Note that she includes a TV show, a book, and another book, and they're all slightly different. And being able to look at all of these nexi, I'm not sure. Is it Greek? Is it Latin? Um, kind of helped me picture, like, okay, where in a bookstore would this sit? And that was very helpful. A concise summary of the book with a beginning, a middle, an end. Love it. If anything, it honestly could have been a tiny bit shorter, but it was really helpful to know what the main beats in the plot are and who the characters are. Past publications, finally, and what she does professionally. Um, my one qualm with this is that if you publish things online, provide them as a hyperlink. So I can just click on the name of it and go right to the website. Or if, say, the publication is defunct, find the archive, like the online archive of it, so I can find it. And then, sincerely, Shelley. It's not, I know it's like not fun, but that's what the book is for. And this was like the perfect amount of information for me to be able to say, great, I'm going to take a read. And then I read this book overnight and I signed it. And I love this book, truly. Um, and this is how we started our professional relationship that has also become a personal relationship. We're quite friendly. And it's because our relationship started with the author taking my professional requests seriously so that I could take their manuscript seriously. Um, oh, where did my PowerPoint go? There's my PowerPoint. The next is a nonfiction book. This is called Mounted on Horses, Blackness, and Liberation, which is a collection of essays by the land worker and art critic Bitter Colley. It came out from Harper Via, which is an imprint of HarperCollins, actually about a month ago, which was very exciting. So this is nonfiction. So this was pitched with a proposal rather than a full manuscript. So this is Bitter's actual query letter. And trust, uh, sidebar, that I got permission to share these. I would not blow up anyone's spot that way. Again, genre and title, essay collection mounted. Interest in literary nonfiction that explores questions of queerness, class, and art. That is literally what I have on my website. Comparative titles slash other clients of mine that they are similar to. So those are like the big ones. It didn't have a word count because it was on proposal. Um, so meaning that the book wasn't written yet. It was basically an abstract and some sample writing. A description of what the book is, and for nonfiction, this is really important, the questions that it asks and answers, and how it is intervening in the current literature. Um, so this is a book about how Black culture and equestrian culture have a really long and entangled and often difficult history. Horses used to be, creatures that would help Black folks with land stewardship, and but they also have aspects in which they are used as imperial violence by colonizing forces. So it's a very interesting history. It's very tightly woven. They used a lot of different elements of culture and different approaches, and it was really, really interesting. A bio that tells me about their expertise and past work. You can see that they mention various publications that they had their writing featured in, and I went through and read all of those. They were a Fulbright recipient. They were nominated for a Robert Dow Short Story Prize. So I get a really clear sense of where they are coming from, how they've kind of cut their teeth in the art and practice of writing, and what influences that they've really brought with them. And yeah, so that is a very good example of a nonfiction project. Now, Lev also told me that what might be helpful are some examples of what not to do. As I said earlier, the two that I shared of good query letters are actual letters written to me by now current clients. For these, my colleague and I took a stab at writing our nightmare query letters. Please note that most of this is like direct quotes or like changing identifying information, but it is how someone has queried us, and it's basically a pile of red flags. Fiction. To start, the idea is that it is to my colleague and then CC'd about 57 other agents or agencies. Don't do this. Um, it comes across like spam. It's just not, you wouldn't send a cover letter to a billion different hiring managers at the same time. You would go one by one. Uh, Not personalized, the name of the agent, in part because you're sending it to dozens of people. Unreasonable comparative titles. To use big titles like Pride and Prejudice, Lord of the Rings, uh, Game of Thrones without telling us what the twist is. It's a not, especially because all of these books are quite old, and were published in times where the industry was simply different. Books don't blow up like that in the same way. So it's actually really hard for us to picture what a new book that compares itself to a book that old will look like in the market. 457,000 words. Unreasonable word count. Um, that is enough words that I will probably delete it. This is the most that we get of a summary is one line, and for all those words, I'm sure a lot of other stuff happens, but I couldn't tell you what it is. Um, I'm being told that I would be lucky to get in on this instead of being shown why. Um, Here's an example of not strong sale numbers, 50 copies, and no evidence of work being done on your own to improve them. There have been plenty of self-published books that have been picked up by agents and then sold to traditional publishers, but the sales numbers need to be quite a bit higher. I'm talking like at least 200,000. Um, because an agent can't really help a book get to the next level if it is not having pickup on its own. Um, This line expresses to me an unwillingness to collaborate. A lot of agents, when you first sign, especially in fiction, will have thoughts about your novel. I mean, every agent's a little different. I'm very editorially involved. So this kind of just tells me like not super willing to collaborate or like have a conversation or be open to feedback that can improve the work. Minor copy edits do not a collaboration make. Um, how do you know George R. R. Martin? And what else have you written? This is the only bio that I have that they know George R. R. Martin, maybe. Also, in terms of platform, unless you have over about 20,000 followers on a platform, I would not share the numbers. I will probably go look them up later, but don't draw attention to a low follower count. And finally, only pitch one project at a time, especially because most agents don't represent all of these genres. Um, Additionally, attaches pages document, please use the standard file type. Not many of us have pages. And if I have to do more work to open your document, I probably don't want to do it. So that is a bad and slightly delusional query for fiction. For nonfiction, um, the key point of the fiction is just kind of the key thing that's not working about the fiction one that I just shared has more to do with not understanding the market and being like having a really inflated sense of possibilities. There's another, flip side of that. A lot of people will open with a gimmick. Don't do that. Um, at least for me, it immediately annoys me. I've been called so many names in the opening paragraph, and then we get to the actual query letter. Um, this is what I would call self-deprecating. There needs to be some degree of confidence that you feel that you are supposed to be here, or else I have a really hard time taking it seriously. Um, Also incredibly personal in ways that make me feel a little unsafe. I think another important thing to recognize about agents is that we are just people at work. Um, the point about confidence. Um, this is really interesting. Requesting that we sign an NDA in order to view your work is always a little suspect. Do the research to make sure that you can write this story. Um, Most projects in nonfiction are sold on proposal, not full manuscript. But if you are querying a full manuscript, as people will often do for a memoir, it should be complete. Um, this is describing sort of the structure of the book. That's another thing that should be in a nonfiction book. But I don't really have a good sense of how this theoretical person's life um, is illuminating Zoroastrianism. Um, Also, in general, just more non-specific examples of why this book is different. Um, Again, attitude rather than information. Again and again, these are actual things that people have written to me. I'm not making that up. Um, from this sentence, I have no sense of the qualifications to tell us why you would be the best person to write an authoritative text on a topic such as Zoroastrianism. Um, and the last one, please offer reasonable deadlines. If you are sending something out and get a lot of manuscript requests from folks, you can feel that out and we can talk about it in the Q&A section. For the love of God, do not stop by the office uninvited. Chances are we're A, not there because most of us are hybrid or work from home, and B, you're not going to get what you want out of it. Um, and then again, please just be normal. So those are some examples of bad query letters. So what did we learn here? A few final thoughts. My parting wisdom is that so much about publishing is subjective and every agent is different. But I hope that this advice will help you put your best foot forward by providing us clear information that helps us help you and helps us perhaps even direct you to the right person. A fact I didn't mention about Shelley's cover letter, that first fiction one that I mentioned, is that she actually initially queried my colleague. My colleague read it, saw that it was well done and professionally done, thought this isn't quite my style, but there is someone else at my agency who would be the perfect person. So by being really professional and direct, it also inspires other folks who perhaps aren't the right person to share it with their colleagues, and perhaps they are the right person. If you wouldn't do it in a job interview, do not do it in a query letter. Um, it is, again, a professional relationship that you are proposing here. And I know that this all sounds very much like the query letter is the end all be all. And like, if I fuck up the cover letter, I'm never going to get a agent. And like, what I can say about that is that it's just one aspect of it, but it is the aspect that you can control the most in terms of it being your first interaction with the publishing industry or with an agent. Um, like you can't control whether or not this book will be exactly the right thing for me. You can do as much research as possible and you can pitch yourself as clearly and professionally as you can. And those are parts that you can control. Um, but really, what wins the day is the writing. Make sure that you and your work are as strong as they can possibly be before querying. Follow directions. As I mentioned, we all mostly put our information for how we like to be queried, whether it's by email, whether it's by a portal. What seems really arbitrary and like it shouldn't matter often has practical reasons for our workflows. Like we really want to get through all of these queries, and anything that makes it harder means that you wait longer to hear back from us or might not hear back from us at all. And in the meantime, be patient. Writing is just one part of life. And again, it's a miracle. Writing a book is extra credit. Um, and just, yeah, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. And I think for a lot of people, the waiting is worth it, but there is a lot of waiting in every part of the process, including this. And now we will turn to questions.
All right. Thank you so, so much. That was fantastic. When I taught creative writing, I'd always have an agent come in to do a presentation similar to this. And it is astonishing to me how many people don't view these agent letters in a professional way and will be overly familiar or even, hit on people in their agent letters. So, definitely remember this is a professional exchange. It is just always wild to me. But we have a bunch of questions that I will read to you from the chat. And if anyone has additional questions, please keep putting them in the chat and I will keep reading them. All right. So our first question is regarding plot, given our genre, mystery, that's what we are. Should we reveal who done it in the query letter?
Um, I don't represent a ton of mystery, but in terms of thinking about narrative, I think giving a clear sense of the narrative should come before intrigue in a certain way, because I think mystery often follows a pretty clear set of norms and set of structural tropes that are used. And when I read the book, it like that will be the surprise of how it's done. Like, not that the reveal happens, which means that you can just put it in the query letter. I probably know the reveal is going to happen. So, like, the interesting part to me is going to be reading, well, how is that information divulged over the course of a book?
Mm.
Um, but again, this is all with a caveat. I don't represent very much mystery. I maybe it's just the Virgo in me, but I do prefer to know how it ends so I can have a clear sense of like, this is where I'm going, and I will find out what you do differently by reading the book.
Fantastic. Next question. Regarding referrals, how would our members, how would writers handle that? What are you looking for in terms of a referral?
A referral is either, it's usually a referral from a existing client. So say like, I know X client, this person's name from X program, job, whatever. And sometimes editors will also, do these kinds of panels and be asked like, who are some agents that I can submit to? So I've gotten referrals from editors that I work with in publishing houses who do this kind of thing and are asked who they should submit to, and they will usually give a bunch of names as to who might be a good match for the project that they're pitching.
So those will come in and the letter will essentially say something to the effect of, I've been referred, you were referred to me by this editor, by this person who I know through this program. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and again, I've also had people lie about this. Um, so someone will be like, what's his name? Garth Greenwell referred me to you. And I'm like, Garth Greenwell does not know who I am. So that's very interesting.
and do you recommend putting that at the
First,
top of a first thing?
first paragraph, even in the subject, saying
Mhm.
referral from, unless, of course, like, but I would say that whatever the agent in question's style guide or like submission guide says, follow that first.
That makes sense.
But it should be towards the top.
All right. Do you find it more effective to lead the letter with the standard banner of title, word count, genre with some comps, or do you think a full-on focused pitch that swings for the fences is the way to open? I'm not super sure what Andy means by swings for the fences,
I,
but I'm guessing like something that plunges you in.
I would format it like a cover letter. Situate me immediately as to like who you are, what the book is, or more specifically, what you're pitching me. Because if I don't know up front that it's, say, a YA book, then I've just spent time looking at something that is in a genre I don't represent. Don't try to trick us by burying something at the bottom. If anything, it makes me less likely to respond because it feels like, A of all, I've been tricked, and B of all, both of our time is wasted now.
Yeah, you said at the beginning about how many queries you think you've read over the course of the past 4 years. But out of curiosity, how many do you think you get a day or a week on average?
I would say it's seasonal. I get a ton over the summer because there are a lot of folks who have work that quiets down over the summer. Um, and I would say the first week of the new year is also when I get a ton of queries because everyone's going back to the gym and querying their novel, because that's their New Year's resolution. But I've had weeks where I've gotten close to 200. I've had when I had closed to queries for part of last year, so when I reopened that first day, I don't even think I counted. I just like auto sent them to my queries inbox. But there are parts of the year where I'll get like maybe 15 in a week, but that's like very, very slow, and I actually can't think of the last time in a week that's slow. So maybe I'm wrong.
And that's still so many to get through when you have all your other work to be doing. So yeah, wasting time of an agent is definitely not a way to go.
Yeah, I think agents can get this reputation for being like steely and like hyper productive, but I'm like, no, I'm also harried. I'm also like, like it's not visible here, but I have like four different drinks here because I haven't stood up in a long time. I look like more of a coder than like a literary agent, and I'm also probably talking on the phone to someone or leaving a voice memo. I think you've probably met Joy and seen how like high energy she has to be at all times.
Yeah, my agent Joy, which is how I know Ayla, is also very busy all the time. Um, If we, another question from the audience, if we list our previously published works, do we need to indicate whether they're traditionally or self-published? It's a good question.
Um, I would do that at the bottom in the part of the bio, like so the bio is at the bottom. Yes, I would say, title, parentheses, name of the press, the year it was published, parentheses. And, if there is a link that you can provide to the publisher's page for the book, um, much like how I recommend having those hyperlinks available for articles or, journals, I recommend doing the same thing again so I can find it quickly.
Excellent. On the rare occasion that a contact email provided for submissions doesn't hint at a person's name or gender, is there a proper way to write a salutation? Dear agent feels very impersonal. And I think I saw someone else uh back this up. Oh yeah, can we use the first name if gender's not clear because they
Yeah.
feel as though Mr. and Miss is outdated?
Yes, I would actually I think using the first name is usually a good bet, um, in general. But if say the agency only has like a generalized submission setup, I think Janko Nesbitt maybe has it set up so all of the queries go into like one inbox and then it auto sorts to the right person, or like someone goes through it and like forwards it to the right person. Um, Dear agent is fine. But usually you will have done the research to see which target you're trying to aim yourself at. And you can open, even if it's just a generalized submission, like with the person you would like them to send it to.
And it'll get to them even
Yeah.
if it's a general. Okay, that's really great to know for people, I think.
Yeah. Or like allegedly it'll get there. It's up to the agency. Some are more organized than others. I don't know. But uh,
Agents are only human.
yeah, agents are only human. Agencies are sometimes just a guy with a laptop. So, really just following those instructions, like they have their own mystery workflow that they will figure out whether or not it actually works is its own separate thing, but do what they ask to give them the opportunity to realize it doesn't work.
That's a great way to think of it. Do what they ask, give them the opportunity to see it doesn't work. Um, how important is it for potential clients to have a large presence on social media? Is that something that could be developed after signing, or is it a deal breaker?
Ugh, this is the question that everyone in publishing relitigates, I think, weekly. Um, so it felt like for a while in recent years that publishers were finally realizing that just because you have a high follower count does not mean that will convert to book sales. So you could have 20,000 followers and only 3,000 are activated enough or engaged enough to actually buy. And also, there was a period where people were like, oh, I just need a high number. So people would purchase bots or purchase followers. And I think publishers kind of got wise to that a couple years ago and like we're briefly a little less stringent about that. I do think in particular for nonfiction, it matters a lot because you have to posture yourself as a professional with a platform of people who want to know what you have to say about a topic. Um, so I think that can often be really helpful. More and more publishers are struggling with low sales, particularly in nonfiction. So, when they consider a book that an agent sends, oftentimes the response is, we like this, but the platform isn't big enough. But that's much more important for things like self-help or like really not technical, but like things where you need uh, professional abilities to be taken seriously. But I will say, if social media is not your bag, don't make social media just for the book. Um, because we can tell. The thing about social media is that it captured our attention because it makes the viewer feel as though they are getting unique or very personal insight into something, that it feels natural, that it feels organic. And if you're not good at that and you don't enjoy doing it, it's pretty obvious and it turns viewers off. So, in some ways, I have a few fiction clients like this. Fiction clients who have no social media following, actually awesome because I have to be like, well, I guess you just have to look at it in the value of the work or like whether or not you like the book. But all this to say, it is something that agents think about, and it is something that we are very frustrated by when we interact or try to sell books to publishers. Because it used to be that you would write a book to get a platform, and now it seems that it has reversed. But I think like with AI and everything else, we're still kind of like fighting through it. Like Twitter doesn't really exist anymore, so that's not really a metric we can use. I think this is a really long way of saying, like, I think it's constantly evolving. If you have social media and you've had it for years, keep using it to the best of your ability, but don't make it just to have it for this.
Mhm. And what was the number again? You said it was only worth mentioning if it got a particular
For
number.
nonfiction, I would say over 20,000. And for fiction, maybe 10, 10, 15.
Hmm.
Perhaps you've like gotten an audience through like writing on Substack or some other micro blogging thing.
And when we're talking about nonfiction, especially, I do want to clarify this. We have some true crime writers in Mystery Writers America. So, do you think that a true crime writer is someone who needs to be thinking of themselves more as a nonfiction or a fiction writer in terms of these sort of structural rules?
I would say more like a fiction writer in some ways. I would say it's like a scale of how narrative something is to how like
Mm,
wonky and how to something is. The more narrative, the more kind of leeway I think there is in terms of where you need followers, and like also how complete the manuscript should be done, uh, or how complete the manuscript should be before querying, whereas like more how to-y, more like research heavy type things can be done more on proposal. Things that will basically cost money for the author to be able to continue researching, and that money would be the advance.
ah. Um, uh, all right. And another question, is it appropriate to send query letters to more than one agent at a time, especially since it can take 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer?
Yeah,
I'm going to have a
just
follow-up to
don't, yes, you should be sending to multiple people. Don't do it all in the same email though,
that.
because then I can see who else is considering. And you don't actually want that.
And my follow-up to that is what happens if an agent asks for a full manuscript or even offers representation, but you still have queries out with other agents? What's the proper way to handle that?
That is a good question. A little bit of it depends on like how long agents have had it. Um, Sometimes people will follow up with all their agents and say, I have gotten a bunch of full manuscript requests. Uh, I personally think that's a little too early to reach out as a follow-up because a request is not, it doesn't really move the needle that much because I request things all the time that will still take me 6 weeks to read. But I, was in a good mood when I got it and was like, that's interesting, and requested it in, but it still might take me a while to read. I would say that the time to follow up with someone is when you've started setting up calls with agents who are perhaps interested in offering representation. Or you can say, I've been offered representation, but I'm really, really interested in working with you. Um, I'm trying to decide by X date. I think 2 to 3 weeks is fair. Um, and it would be great to hear from you before then. I will say that the agent who has already offered you representation might not be a fan of that. It's agent to agent. I'm delusional and confident enough, and I'm like, sure, talk to other people. No one's doing what I do, but in general, it's just, again, agents are just people. They have different ways of conducting business, but it won't be out of the realm of like normal behavior, to kind of set that deadline once you have active interest.
Hmm. And you said 2 to 3 weeks you should give an agent to actually get back to you.
Yeah, I've had people give me 5 days, and then I'm just like, well, I'm not getting to it, so.
And how long, the most recent question from Margaret was, said it could take 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer. How long should people expect? Is there a time when you can check in, especially if someone has a full manuscript as opposed to just a query?
If they have a full manuscript, I would say check in after like 4 to 6 weeks. And for a query, just like a plain old query that hasn't been responded to. I don't know. I feel like a person in a glass house with a rock. I definitely have queries I have not responded to that are from May, uh, just that I haven't gotten to them. Um, so I think you would be fine to follow up, but also I wouldn't necessarily expect a response. But it might just be that they missed the email, and if you follow up, maybe they'll give it a read. Um,
And how long would you say for that?
3 months.
That sounds right to me too.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Someone followed up with me after, actually, this is in my inbox right now. Someone followed up with me after 2 weeks just to say that they had gotten confirmation of receipt from several agents. And I'm like, that, great. They're just more polite than I am.
Another question. For those of us who have not been published previously, what would be appropriate to include in the author bio section of the query letter? So, for example, I'm active in this organization like MWA-NY and a few local writing groups. Is that significant enough to mention to an agent or no?
I mean, in absence of any other publication, yeah, I think part of what I look for in publication history is just an understanding of how you've interacted with a writing community because so much of this industry is about writers doing favors for each other, and um, that's really important for a part of marketing. So to know that you are interacting with other writers, that you are conscious of other writers and have a writing community is really, really helpful. But also, if you have no publications, I would maybe recommend trying to get some short fiction published. It gives you the practice of both the waiting and the submitting. And the if they pick up your work, the experience of being edited. Because that in itself is a skill that really needs strengthening from the beginning. So if you have no publications, I would ask the question like, have you tried? Uh, have you been out here writing smaller pieces? Because also writing a book is freaking hard, man. Like it's so many pages. So getting practice and putting together a coherent story on a smaller scale is really helpful.
Another thing I've heard, and you can tell me if this is smart or not, is if you're writing something that isn't autobiography, but has a slight slant to it, like if you're writing a detective who's a beekeeper and you're a beekeeper, still on Joy's honey, um, would it make sense to mention that in the bio?
Yeah, like if there's relevant information, like in Shelley's letter, she said, I was inspired to write this book because I was in the backseat of a hearse at a family funeral, and my mom said, damn, I bet these people have a lot of stories. Uh, so that was, just enough personality, but also to show like they're in the world, they're interacting with it, they're thinking about it as a writer. But yeah, like you could say like in the bio, like I was inspired to write this book after, your example, several years of beekeeping. Uh, just to show that like chances are you're gonna have a lot of like interesting details and it's not just gonna be like the Wikipedia page of what it is to do beekeeping or a description of like a YouTube video.
Fantastic. All right, well, that seems to be our questions. I want to remind everyone once again that we are trying this sort of pilot mentoring thing. So if you, after this program, are thinking to yourself, wow, I'd love to be paired with someone else who is in this program or watch it online, please email me, mentors@mwany.org, and I will pair people who have attended this and are MWA-NY members off so that you can workshop each other's agent letters. Just please do that by next week. And it doesn't matter if you have the letter written yet. I'm just going to try to pair everyone off by then. Otherwise, it's going to be for the next month or so. People are going to be emailing me and I'm going to have to wait for someone else. So thank you so much, Ayla. Any final words, any recommendations before we leave you?
Good luck out there.
It's It's rough. Yeah, good luck to everyone. And thank you everyone for attending and thank you for being members of MWA-NY. Your, membership dues help us put on stuff like this. And have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.